At the time I'm recording this, it is my birthday. I have lived for a quarter century. And I think to celebrate that, I want to do something a little bit different than just uploading another video of a song from Chrono Trigger the Musical. I'd like to talk about something I get asked a whole lot, which is basically, how do I write? Well, the smartass answer would be, I open up LibreOffice, because I'm not paying for Microsoft Word, and I type words using my keyboard, and then I put them in a Google document so that people can look at them, and that I can easily change them later. But what people are really asking when they ask how to write isn't literally how to write, because obviously they can write. They've typed words on the computer and sent them, so they have at least some basic understanding, despite the YouTube comment section sometimes making me question that. What they're asking is, Alex, how do you write lyrics the way that you do? Now, this isn't going to be a step-by-step guide how to write lyrics good. If you're looking for one of those, then I am sorry, none exist. There will be plenty of guides that will teach you about any number of art forms and what methods people use to do that. But until you find one that works for you, there's only so much that a tutorial or a walkthrough can do for how to apply yourself to a creative endeavor. So instead of teaching you, alright, first you blah blah blah, second blah 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 blah, this is kind of a combination of my method and me musing on lyrics and writing in general. In writing, I usually keep in mind 3 basic expressions: mood, goal, and truth. Mood is fairly simple. What is the atmosphere of the scene in which the writing's taking place? Is it in the middle of a war zone? Because if so, the mood of that is going to be much, much different than on a children's television show singing about friendship. At the same time, though, mood cannot stand on its own. Otherwise, every song would be called sad song, or happy song, or angry song, because just playing to a general mood is not getting specific. That is where goal comes in. Goal is, simply put, what does the subject want, or what does the subject need to express? The subject doesn't need to be a singer or even a person. If you're a third-person omniscient narrator talking about the environment, then by God, the environment needs to express something, and that something is its goal. Now, goal alone, much like mood, cannot sustain writing by itself. Otherwise, everything would be pretty cut and dry. For example, people going up to each other on the street saying, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." Followed by, "My name is Count Rugen. I killed your father. I want to stay in power. I like torture." You see, there is no emotional depth to any of those characters, even though they're saying outright what they want. Which leads us to the third aspect, truth, which is closely intertwined with mood and goal. The general rule of musical theater is that people burst into song not all the time, but only when the emotional intensity is so high that bursting into song is the only recourse that's left available to them. In this, they show truth, by letting all their feelings burst out as only a song can show. Now obviously this isn't meant to be literal. Not every song in a musical is just bursting out with emotion. Some are more reserved and low-key. But even in those low-key, more emotional songs, there is still an emotional truth within them. And yes, there are forms of media where people lie. However, usually in those forms of media, lies are found out, if not by other characters, then by the audience. So there is still room for those characters or those scenarios to show emotional truth. This would mean that in Your Best Friend from Undertale the Musical, Flowey, who is a consummate liar, can still be trying to look like Frisk's best friend at the beginning, but then show the emotional truth that he is, in fact, a sociopath. Truth fuels both the emotional weight of the mood and the idea of the goal. But without those two, truth isn't really worth all that much. It's just something that is. Which is fine in and of itself. I have nothing against truth existing. But this is talking about writing, so we're going to need more than just truth existing. We need all 3 of those parts to come together to help us know how exactly I write what I write. As an example, let's talk about the area songs from Undertale the Musical: Ruins, Snowden Carol, Waterfall, Core, and Undertale. In all of them, the goal is essentially the same. The monsters want to leave the underground. But the mood in them is drastically different. In Ruins, the monsters are curious as to what exactly the newcomer is going to do. Is Frisk going to kill them, or are they going to actually save them all? Or will they just walk on through? They do not know at this point because it is the beginning of a new adventure. And the truth they are going for is, let's get this story going. In Snowden Carol, meanwhile, the lyrics and the melody are a whole lot cheerier. Even though they are trapped underground, there's still a sense of camaraderie and happiness. This partially reflects that Sans and Papyrus, two of the most cheerful characters in the musical, happen to live in Snowden Town, and partially because there are so many monsters gathered around with an actual settlement in Snowden that they can feel some comfort together, even though they really, really want to leave. Aria's lyrics in Waterfall are quite similar to the mood used in Ruins. However, this is much slower, more somber, and more mystical. In this one, the echo flowers are singing more than the monsters, hearing whispers and echoes of timelines and what's happening, what may happen. There's an air of mystery and a little bit more foreboding now that you're closer to the castle and in an area that is much darker and damper than in the Ruins. The core, however, is much more energetic. The monsters that live in and around the core are generally stronger than the monsters that live outside. There are obvious exceptions, but we're just talking about common monsters, not people like Undyne, Papyrus, Sans, whatever. So while Ruins and Snowden Carol were both kind of driving in their happiness, this one is driving and more aggressive. So while the monsters of Hotland are, like the rest of them, waiting to see the sky, they're more confident and more, I don't want to say angry, but more assertive that the human is going to fall and they will be free. This all culminates in Undertale, which is a very sad song detailing the fall of the Dreamer family, and I drink everyone's salty tears from the comments. Now, the chorus section here starts at the beginning and the end. The end is what's most important, because like the rest of the monsters, they're singing how that one day they will see the sun. But in Undertale, they are much, much more confident that it will come when the human child dies at the hands of Asgore. But unlike the core, they're not necessarily aggressive, talking about how they will burn in hell. They're more reverent, they're more at peace. They're saying it's all going to be okay, we are going to be free. They hold this story and this truth kind of sacred at this point, where it's not simply out of malice. It's a complicated range of emotions, but it has been a long, long journey for the monsters, and their one truth is that finally, they see the end, and they can return back to the surface where they came from. This all goes to show that even though a goal can change over the course of a story, it can stay pretty much the same and still have different meanings carried throughout a show. But since I'm 8 minutes in, you're probably wondering what the hell does this have to do with how you write lyrics, Alex? Well, here's the too long didn't listen version. I find the mood, the goal, and the truth of what the music is trying to say, combined with what the story is of the game or the source material, if there is any, and then I try to transcribe it in a way that makes sense. Using Undertale again as an example, we move away from the chorus and go into the actual meat of the song, which is a flashback to Kara falling down, Asriel finding them, and then everything going to hell. Now, in the game, the story is told to you third hand through the various monsters that you pass on the way through New Home. With a musical, however, we could afford to be a bit more loose with the canon and show it as a flashback, so you get to directly see Asriel dying. Because the game Undertale already had the story written down, it was a matter of taking the script and adapting it into lyrics, which meant changing the point of view to that not of the monsters, but that of Kara, Asriel, and the Dreamer family in the moment that the story was taking place in. The mood of the track itself in the game is a slow build. It goes to epic as you go through the halls, and then down to melancholy as what you hear sinks in. While the melody itself was a series of short, repeating, held-note phrases, which meant that lyrics had to be very short in length and still communicate the same idea. This led to such stanzas as, "I'm sorry, please stay with me, the shield above won't let me leave," when Kara is dead. With all three aspects being figured out, the mood being a very sad, flashbacky story, the goal being the monsters telling you a story through a flashback justifying why they want you to die, and the truth being, well, the entire emotional truth that is that story. I then listened to the song over and over and over and over and over, so I got a general idea of what the rhythm was and fit the lyrics within that. Wow, and I said that was the too long didn't listen version. Anyway, I guess this doesn't really help if you're looking for a step-by-step guide on how to write lyrics. But really, none of those will help you unless you have an emotional connection to what you're writing. So, the takeaway, and the too long didn't listen to the too long didn't listen version, is really feel what you're really feeling about what you're writing for real.